How's it going? I'm
Good.
Logan.
I am Mr. Weaver, Mark Weaver. I say
is-
Mr. Weaver because I was a teacher. But
That's true.
You can call me Mark.
This is my old math teacher. I'm very happy that he's here today. I'm going to ask him some questions about Flint, Michigan. So, how are you today?
I'm great today. It's
Wonderful
a beautiful day, end of the summer.
In the 90s today.
Yeah.
Probably it should be one of the last warm days of the year.
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying.
I wanted to talk to you today because you are one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met in my life.
Oh, I don't know about that.
And I just wanted to get some opinions from you on what's going on in Flint, because that's just something that really interests me. So, first things first, the one that everybody talks about is the water crisis.
Right.
How it happened, why hasn't it been really solved yet? Because it was, 5 years ago now? Or
Yes.
So?
Yes.
So what are your views on that?
Well, Flint, the water crisis was sort of a self-made crisis. The city of Flint had been doing horribly financially due to a loss of their tax base. The factories had moved out, so there went the jobs, there went the tax base, there went the people. It kind of left a hollowed out city. Flint has, I looked this up, so because I didn't know, but Flint has about half the population now that they had in 1960, just a little under 100,000 now, and it was just a little under 200,000 in 1960. So when you hollow out a city like that, it creates an economic vacuum, and there's poverty, there's drugs, there's crime, all that stuff. And you get people that are kind of shady involved in the local government, and then the state took over the city of Flint and tried to run the city of Flint as a business to make money. That's the Republican model of civic engagement, is to run things like a business. So you want to run a school, run it like a business. You want to run a government, run it like a business. Hospital, run it like a business. And that just doesn't work in the cities. So the city of Flint was buying their water from Detroit in a big pipeline, had been for quite a few years. It was pretty expensive, and the state managers who took over were looking for a cheaper way to get that water to the city of Flint. So they decided they were going to stop buying money from Detroit, or stop buying water from Detroit, and start buying it, or start draining it from the Flint River. The Flint River is very polluted, so the water required a lot of treatment chemicals, and still was not very high quality. It wasn't what you or I would be used to drinking. But one of the key things they forgot to do when they switched over to the Flint River water was to add this chemical so the water would be less corrosive, less wearing on the pipes. The Flint River water got into the pipes, it was corrosive, and it started to eat away at the lead at the inside of the pipes, which then flowed into people's houses. And lead is a very poisonous substance for human beings. It's a heavy metal. It affects the brain, and especially the brains of young children. So they were unaware of the problem for quite a while, because they would test their water at the water treatment plant, and they send it out before they send it out into the system. And it was fine. It tested okay. The chemical levels were okay. But on the way to people's houses, it was going through these pipes and picking up lead. And as it picked up lead, it picked up large amounts of lead. In some cases, like 100 times more lead than you should have in water. And because the city was hollowed out, because there was such poverty, because the people there were not empowered in any way, nobody really cared. Nobody pitched a bit about it. Finally, I think it was the University of West Virginia water scientists who discovered how leady their water was. And that finally got people to notice and to come in and try to switch back over to Detroit water, which still didn't clean up the problem because the lead was still leaching out of the water inside the pipes. So now that they were faced with a horrendously expensive option, digging up all of the lead pipes and replacing them with probably PVC or some sort of plastic. So it was a way to save money that was done to the 96,000 people in Flint that endangered everyone's life.
Let's talk about why is it so dangerous in Flint? Why has Flint's recently become far more dangerous than Detroit is what I've read. And why is that?
I think Flint is a lot more dangerous than it used to be. Detroit is somewhat safer than it used to be. New York City is now one of the safest cities in the world and used to be one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And I believe it was while Bill Clinton was in office, who was not one of my favorite people, but regardless, one of the things they did was they increased taxes and they used the money to put more police on the streets everywhere, like 100,000 policemen on the streets, which was reflected in crime going down. When the streets are patrolled, when there are cops in sight, when people know the police are around, lights are lit, people commit less crime. And if they do commit crime, there's somebody there to catch them. And after Clinton left office, they cut the taxes back, and those 100,000 policemen were let go, went back to pre-police levels, and that was one of the things that caused the increase in crime. It wasn't the only thing, it was one of the things.
The next thing I want to talk to you about is something that I don't necessarily have a lot of knowledge in. I'm assuming you won't, but I'm not sure. I want to talk about the drug trafficking that goes on. I don't participate in drug trafficking, so I don't know that much about it. But I know that's huge in Flint. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's huge everywhere right now. We're going through an epidemic of people getting hooked on drugs, especially opiates and opioid drugs. And Flint has a long history of being a drug center for opioid drugs, for cocaine, for crack, meth to a lesser extent. Meth seems to be more of a rural problem, like Claire Harrison area. But it's a way for people to make money illegally. They don't have to claim on their taxes. They can and it's more money than they can make by going to work at a convenience store or whatever other options are available to you. There aren't many grocery stores left there now. There aren't many schools to work at. There just are not a lot of places to work. So people try to, I think, medicate themselves so they feel better about what's going on with drugs that are not good for them. And there are people who are willing to make money doing that. And so heroin is really cheap right now. And even cheaper than heroin is fentanyl, which is a derivative of an opiate drug that's like 100 times more powerful than heroin. So if you get a little bit of this stuff, you can mix it in with your heroin and make lots of money and sell it. And this is coming in, it's made in China, it's coming in through China. China is importing a lot of it to the United States. Some of it through Mexico, some of it through other ports. But this fentanyl drug is really what's killing a lot of people that are overdosing on drugs. I think the drug problem in general is really a response to people trying to medicate themselves and making money and getting addicted. It's just a horrible cycle.
One of the last things I want to talk about is the education in Flint. I've seen videos where there's so many abandoned schools and a lot of kids are forced to, and instead of going to school and getting an education, they're forced to just start off on the streets, part of the gang, and they don't. It's rough. Why do you think that is, and how can that be fixed?
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the city emptied out people. And there used to be 4 or 5 high schools in Flint when they had 200,000 people. A lot of young people. It was vibrant, good-paying factory jobs were around. And then those factory jobs went away and the people went away and the city emptied out. So now you've got 5 or 6 high schools, who knows how many middle schools and elementary schools scattered around the city, and not enough kids to fill them up. So you start closing this school over here and this school over here and this high school closes and this closes. And it's a very uneven process, because when you lose about 10% of your students a year, maybe, then what do? I mean, you went from a class of 30 to a class of 25 or 27 or 28. So all the money that those 3 kids would have brought in, which would be about $25,000, is gone. But you still need to have that classroom there. You still need to have the same number of teachers. And then eventually you need maybe a little less teacher. And finally the school, is half empty, so it closes. But it's just a very uneven and unequal process. And there was corruption in the schools. There were people who were taking school money and using it for themselves. That's going to happen pretty much anywhere, in any kind of institution, whether it's a school, whether it's a business. If people can cheat, eventually they will, and somebody's got to keep an eye on that. And there aren't enough people keeping an eye on that. So the Detroit schools are corrupt, the Flint schools are corrupt. The money that we're sending in there to help make things better isn't being used the way it should be or could be. And then what do you do with a city full of empty school buildings, where you've got enough kids for 1 high school and you have 6 high school buildings? You tear those down? I think you do, but that takes money. And as an educator, as a teacher, one of the things that I think has really hurt public education in Michigan is charter schools. I know a lot of people disagree with me about that, but it's the same sort of issue where in Mount Pleasant used to have a couple of charter schools. I think there's still one open. But they might only take 50 kids from the school. And 50 kids is enough for them to run their school. They get $8,000, and it's 50 new kids, so they just divide them up into a couple of classes and teach them. There you go. But when you take 50 kids out of Mount Pleasant schools or Clare schools, you're taking 3 kids per grade, 4 kids per grade. What do? You're losing that money, but you still have to provide for those kids. You still have to have a teacher for those kids. You still have to have a classroom for those kids. So charter schools have sort of diluted the amount of money that could be going into every school and splitting it up amongst a bunch of schools. And it has hurt the school's ability to function as a part of the community.
I would say this has been a very successful interview. I have a lot of awesome footage here now. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate the time.
You're very welcome. And I've always thought a lot of you as a student, and I appreciate what you're doing here.
Thank you. It's one of the things that it's interested me for a long time, and just recently I started one night. I looked it up on YouTube. Why is Flint so bad? And then I had an idea. There's a series on Netflix too. I think it's called Flint Town, and it starts with the water crisis. But that's made for entertainment purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's not true. It probably is. I haven't seen it. but I'm sure it's made, they cover a lot more of the colorful parts of the city in order to sell the show better, obviously. So what I want to do here is I want to go into and look at, all the rough parts of Flint, maybe Detroit if this is something that people are interested in. And I don't have enough money to help fix it. If I did, I certainly would, but I don't get paid on YouTube, so
Maybe someday.
maybe someday. Where do I go next with Flint? Let me know. Leave me a comment, please. This might be a bad time to bring this up, but if you want to buy these pretty awesome Logstud 97 shirts, I'll put the link to the website down there. You should buy one, because I need money. Thank you very much for being here again. This has been an awesome interview. I have a lot of awesome footage I can use here. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Logan.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.